Okay, hi Duncan. It's great to meet you after all this time here in incredibly hot to me,
Yeah, hot to meet you.
uh, Houston. Now we had a talk yesterday, and I found your backstory. I love people's lives. I love autobiographies, and fellas like us in this kind of world, alt media, alt scene, they never really ask us about our backgrounds, and that's why I always ask people about that. You said, now you grew up in the Appalachian part of Kentucky. You said
Right,
of your family were Irish immigrants, and
right.
you were telling me all about the how you were self-sufficient off the land, all
Hmm.
natural foods, you slaughtered your own cattle and so on, this kind of thing. Now, I find that very fascinating because that wasn't that long ago, relatively speaking, and the world has
No,
changed.
no, not long at all.
Not at all. And you were living a lifestyle in Kentucky, as I suppose many of what they call the Scotch Irish or Ulster
Hmm.
Irish did in those mountains that would have been the same as in Ireland going back generations. Were you cognitive of your kind of like Irish, Indo-European, Celtic, whatever you want to call it, heritage when you're growing up?
Yeah, I grew up hearing stories from my dad about his father and his grandfather, and when they came here, I knew they were all from Galway. I knew about what year they came, was in the mid to late 1920s. I saw a lot of the old newspaper clippings where I had they would be my great uncles, where I could go to were terminated in gunfights and so on and so forth. And yeah, as far as that, I knew. And then I did my own research. I love the library, love to read, and I read everything on Irish history I could find.
Where you grew up, I know, like I've been on certain parts of the Appalachians, like Georgia and upstate
Mm-hmm.
New York, and a few other places in West Virginia, and I find that it's one of the most amazing and interesting places in America. It's in many ways it's kind of the conduit of America. You have all these
Mm-hmm.
cultures moving up and down. Rock and roll was born there from like Scotch Irish immigrants meet well, their music meeting African Americans and this kind of thing when they've met up in Memphis and places
Mm-hmm.
like that. But I'm also interested in folklore and sorcery and magic and stuff like that. Did you have any exposure to any kind of Appalachian sorcery?
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear about that.
Absolutely. I give you one real good example. We were taught, we knew when black magic was being thrown when the milk was sour in the cow.
That's very Irish. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's very Irish folk magic. Yeah.
yeah. That was one of the things, and we would have to put silver dollars in the churn as the milk, and to keep it from turning, that would block the black magic. The other would be to literally nail silver coins on the top of fence posts around the livestock.
You were creating a barrier against psychic attacks, you'd probably find that a lot of that would be jealousy or endless envy
Yeah,
by neighbours or someone who was pissed off at the family.
exactly.
That's it just goes, and that would be the thing would be to attack the livestock, to attack the crops, to
Yeah,
attack the livelihood.
yeah.
So the silver coins were nailed on the fence
You nail
posts.
them on the fence post. Yeah,
That's fantastic. I know that's a new one for me. So you create this kind of like magic circle around the farm.
correct.
That's outstanding. Now, another part of sorcery and folk magic, which people don't really normally think about it, but it is things like herbal cures and stuff.
Uh-huh.
You were probably your family were probably self-sufficient in knowing what roots and what kind of plants could heal
Uh,
certain conditions.
we grew our own ginseng.
Right.
With my grandfather, actually, was my step grandfather. My real Irish grandfather was killed in a mining accident years before, but my step granddad was as close to me as anybody ever was. And he taught me how to, what we call go singing. You go and you find wild ginseng and when to dig it, wild sassafras, how to use dandelion roots, how to use the flower, uh, birch wood, the bark, beech wood, pine nettles, just on and on and on. It was like every day there was a lesson.
That's excellent. Now, what about, should we say, more kind of Fortean ideas, like things like, was there kind of a folklore pertaining to things like fairies or strange lights or entities that lived in the mountains, this kind of thing?
The entities in the mountains in that area, they were, believe me, they were real. As far as a lot of the folklore, not so much in that area with the Fae. The wee folk, yes, there was always the warning to try and keep a kid around the house. You go too far, one of the little people going to grab you. That was common in that area. The other thing that was really common in that area were shapeshifters.
Can you explain what they were?
Technically, a shapeshifter is a human or an animal that can shapeshift into another human or animal at relative the same size and weight. To do differently would be to pull energy from the other side to increase or decrease the size and mass.
Would they be originally animal or human or neither?
Mostly humans changing into animals.
So would they have this innate ability, or would it be was something they'd have learned through magic?
It was something that would be learned through magic.
And would it be certain families who would do it, this kind of thing?
The ones that you avoided at all cost.
So that it wouldn't be a kind of a shamanic process or anything. It'd be they'd probably just sneak up on you as a deer or something.
Yeah, there were numerous times where we would find animals slaughtered in the barn. When the barn was locked, there's no way the animal got out. But we'd go in the next morning and find a cow ripped to shreds, or a horse with its legs broken, and there's no way it was an accident.
Mm.
And it was done so quietly, so swiftly, no human did it.
Yeah, it was probably even done outside this time frame. It could have been done in a split second.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that song by Led Zeppelin where they mentioned if you feel a rustle in the hedgerow. There's a belief in Indo-European, so basically what you're describing too in the Appalachians, of that these entities move at higher speeds. They're in a different time frame.
Well, there are actually places in those mountains where time does not function properly.
Mm.
You walk through what we call a gully. It's where a mountain comes this way, a mountain comes this way, and there'll be a small stream. There are spots in some of these areas where when you walk through, your balance is off. You literally feel yourself shifting side to side. And
compasses don't work on GPS. No. I've had that experience recently in the Odenwald. I went hiking in the Odenwald in Germany, and it's notorious for these strange rock formations that basically, and it happened to me, they give you a sense of dizziness, and there's also you don't know what time of the day it is or night.
No.
So it just goes to show you, and that's the main reason I interviewed you for this my Occult Source TV channel, is I want to show that these are Indo-European experiences that have traveled outside of Europe. They've traveled all over the world. They've traveled to America, Australia. They've traveled with the Indo-European tribes, the Celts, the Vikings, the Norse with accents, whatever, all over the world, and the archetypes are identical. So that was fantastic, Duncan. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you brought that up as well, because one of the things that we've been experiencing with my wife and I, the work that we do, Jinn.
Tell us about the Jinn, because it's something I'm interested in too as well, because people associate that with the Middle East, but it seems to be a global phenomenon.
It is, and I had never experienced one, and I've been doing this work for over 30 years until we came to Houston, and it was with a guy who served 2 tours in Iraq.
Well, there you go.
And he brought it back.
Yeah, I've heard stories like that from veterans, Gulf War veterans in Britain, that they come back having these bizarre dreams, and it's often put down as post-traumatic stress. What they've done is the whole thing of the Jinn, of smokeless fire, it's like a plasma golem, a plasma being. And so were you successful in treating this guy?
It was hard, but we did get it off.
Did you have any kind of manifestation when it happened, or was it like a personality thing that he was dealing with?
He was screaming.
Wow.
He was screaming. He had been to other people to try and get it off, in his mind, he saw it as, in his words, a large cat attached to his skull that he couldn't get off.
A cat.
Yeah. And of course, as we saw it, it was just like an energy blob spinning and swirling.
Yeah, well, the individual often resolves it to something familiar they can deal with. Sometimes a fear. If they have a fear of snakes, they'll see a snake. A fear of a cat, they'll see it. Because the entity plays upon your subconscious fears.
Right.
So maybe as a child he had a problem with a cat or something, and it jumped onto that. Interesting, the location as well. On what side of the head again?
I remember correctly, I've been on the left.
Yeah, very interesting. So the left side of the brain relating to the right side functioning. So he probably on the right side of his body was probably having problems with eyesight or whatever, palsies and things like that.
He was.
Yeah.
He was losing the eyesight in one eye, and he was beginning to shake when he shouldn't have. But
Yep.
once it was removed, he began to get better.
Yeah, well, that's why we need all these like proper healers to do the shamanic healing and the because a lot of these things, I think things like the fibromyalgia, lupus, and a lot of these neurological diseases, I think are actually directly related to spiritual conditions. This is why medical science can't find them.
Correct.
And I often think, and I believe that things like Gulf War syndrome may be just a case of a mass Jinn immigration brought back. Just like in the past, soldiers brought back venereal disease. Now they're also bringing back spiritual diseases.
Agree.
Well, thank you very much. That was fantastic.
sir.
Thank you, Duncan.